this time, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to invite our VFW Post Commander Jimmy Douglas for our welcome message.
Seated. First things first. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am so happy to see those of you that are here. We have this every year, and every year it's a work of love. This year we did a little different because we want to do some things that let the community know that we're happy to be here. Us as veterans of foreign wars, we do a lot of things that we don't always announce what we do. It's because we don't do it for the pleasure of doing it and getting recognized for it. We do it for the veterans families, and the local community. So I want all of you to know that you are so welcome in our home today. You administrative things, if you need to go to the bathroom, for those Navy guys, that's a latrine. All the way to the back, to the rooms. We'll be serving at noon, so our master ceremonies will be guiding us through all of this. So I'm not one for a lot of words, so I'm going to let her do what she does best.
At this time, we would like to go ahead and have Pastor Robert Beeman come forward for our opening prayer.
Father God, we come to you, God, knowing that you know all things now, dear God, we come to give you thanks and honor and praise what's about to take place and what has already occurred in us at this moment. We ask you, God, that you, God, keep us in all of our ways. Not only that, God, but you, God, give us, God, the recognition that we need, God, to honor you more than anything else. Thank you for the season, because it's about you. Thank you for sending your son, Jesus, and through him that we may have eternal life. Bless you, God, for the veterans, God, that are gathered here today, God, and first responders and everyone else that is gathered, God, to put a special blessing on each and every one. Not only that, God, but their family members also. And God, we know, God, that you are in control of everything that takes place. We thank you that you have told us that the government is on Jesus' shoulders. So we thank you that you are in charge of what's taking place. We give you honor and praise and glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
My name is Sabrina Young. I'm a service officer here, and I get the great privilege to announce our guest speaker. Her name is Tracy Brown Green. Tracy is the National Women's Veterans Issues Officer, Department of Texas Commander, and the Centex Chapter 1876 Commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. Veterans of Foreign Wars State of Texas Suicide Awareness Committee Chair and a life coach. Tracy Brown Green joined the Army in 1998. During her 22-year career, she rose through the ranks to Master Sergeant. Retired now, Brown Green has deployed around the world and served in combat during Operation New Dawn in Iraq and Operation Freedom Centennial in Afghanistan. Her military awards and decorations include the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, Service Medal, and several other distinguished awards in her career. Master Sergeant Brown Green earned her purple from wounds sustained in an attack in Afghanistan. She retired from her final assignment as a logistics manager in the 1st Cavalry Sustainment Brigade at Fort Hood, Texas. Tracy graduated from the American Military University with a Bachelor's of Arts in Management, a certificate from Cornell in Women's Entrepreneurship, a Master of Arts in Management and Leadership in Liberty University, and a graduate certificate from North Central University in Management. She is currently working on her doctorate in business administration. Tracy is passionate about the well-being of military veterans and their families. She is a master life coach and a recipient of the 31st District Congressional Veterans Commendation. She is focused on fostering an environment of goodwill, camaraderie among combat wounded veterans, and providing service to all veterans and their families. Tracy and her husband Gregory and their family reside in Harker Heights, Texas. She has served in many organizations, including the Disabled Veterans of America Executive Committee, the Fort Hood Soldier for Life Retiree Council, the Veteran Suicide Prevention Channel Vice Chairman, and the Austin Veterans Arts Festival as a Vice Chairperson. Her extensive community involvement culminates many volunteer opportunities with the Killeen Independent School District, where she is recognized for her care and concern for student success. I'd like to welcome Tracy Brown.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So, I have a thing about people not being able to hear me. Can you hear me in the back? All right. So they always tell me I do not speak loud, which I could chalk that up to I just don't like loud noises. So today I was asked to talk to you about some serious issues that happen more during the holidays than it does in, say, between January and September. And I stopped at September because September is the Suicide Prevention / Awareness Month. So today I'm going to give you some tips so when you see this, you will not walk away. When you see it, you'll actually know what to do. So if you have family members or friends that are not acting the way they would normally act in October during Halloween, and it's November and December, you can actually come back suicide. So today I'm going to give you a brief information about suicide awareness. So the biggest thing that we ever tell you about suicide awareness is to pay attention to your family and friends. As you pay attention to your family and friends, you pay attention to their actions. When they start doing things like telling you that, oh, I just wish I was dead, or I think I want to kill myself, when you start hearing things like that, and then for some, it's not even that far into it. It is, I'm doing some destructive things, like, I don't ride a motorcycle, but I'm going to go buy me a new Harley or a new Roadster, and I'm going to go and hit the streets really fast. Because I'm trying to, one, hit the cement block in the middle, or jump a couple gates. I say that to you like that because in my lifetime, I've had a friend that I think I want to go and hit this pillar in the middle of the road and see if I survive. When you hear things like that, which is jokingly saying it, what are you supposed to do next? The next question that you will offer to someone like that is, are you seriously thinking about suicide? do you want to take your life right now? And when they give you that yes or maybe so, then you have to persuade them into doing something different. And your persuasion works like this. 1, where's your location right now? I am coming to you. No, I am leaving and I'm going somewhere else. Okay, where are you going? And you stay on the phone with them. Because if you hang up, it's a possibility that they're going to try it. And then it's another possibility that they might not survive. I will tell you now that we all can prevent suicide, but some days it's a little difficult. And in your difficult days, you have to look at what's going on in that person's life. Meaning your life, everything you have going on in it is not important at that time. Because for you to save a life, you can't think about, I have to go and get the groceries, or I have to go and get my kids or my grandkids, or I have to go to this school event. Because right now, in that moment, the only thing that's important to you is their life. Because their life is important. And it's important to a lot of people. Because if they don't survive in that lifetime, you never know what they would have accomplished. And in everyone's lifetime today, we want to know what they will be. And so we like to put things in place that instead of you wondering what they will be, that after a little trip with a counselor, sometimes inpatient, sometimes not. But today I want you to know about 988. 988 is the Suicide and Crisis Hotline. This hotline is there for you if you text 988 and send I need help. They will respond back to you. If you don't want to text 988, we have a QR code that you can actually scan it and they will talk to you. Or you can call the long number, which I will give you at the end. So, my biggest pointers for you right now is when you see somebody change their mood. If they're happy all the time and go lucky, if they change their mood, you need to figure out why. See, what is going on? What's going on in your life? When you're not happy and on Mountain Dews, what is going on in your life? When you don't like standing behind the grill, cooking, what is going on? Because that is the biggest thing in people's lives. Some lives, they actually do that. We talk every day or we talk every other day and it's a 3 or 4 day gap. There is something wrong. And you should think about that. Hey, I haven't talked to you in a week. Tell me what's going on in your life. Tell me what we can do together because we need to meet. And I don't talk about meeting next week. We need to meet today. Because if I wait until tomorrow, you might not be here. Because I don't know what's going on. So, I can tell you some risk factors for suicide. And these are not all the risk factors. They're just a very small few. And these are PTSD. Any mental health condition can lead to suicide. And that's just the facts of the matter, that it could lead to suicide. Now, there's a lot of strong people out there with mental issues that don't think like that, but some do. So we always have to take in consideration that, hey, let's see where your head is at. If we get you to the doctor and get you on the right medicine, let's continue to work with you to make sure that you're okay. Let's get you into an exercise regimen. Let's try things that you haven't tried before so you can have some kind of different stage in your life. The normalcy of every day gets difficult. And now that we're in the holiday season, people are not visiting families. COVID has made that a little harder. So when you don't leave to visit your family, then you have to go to your friends. Because believe it or not, you have more family that is not blood over blood related people. And so you have to remember that, yes, we always say blood is thicker than water. But you know what? Some friends of mine are better than my family. Because they are my family. We are still in a military community. So the people you work with every day, the people you have served with, they are more your family than you can think about. So if you can't get to your family, you go to your other family. These are our extended family. Because our extended family loves us more than our family does, and they know more about us than we think they do. So when we change our parents, they see it. When we change our disposition, they know it. And And they're always wanting to do something to help us. So don't get upset when your friends say, hey, I'm here to help. Because they truly are. And that's all they want to do is help. So when you have the high school kids, the middle school kids, and the elementary kids, when you see something different and you know it's different, say something. It's not a point where I can't tell my family or my brother or my sister or my mom or my dad. If you have something that's going on, you tell them. Because most people can't fix what they don't know. So if we don't sit down and have a conversation, you'll never know what's going on. And we always want to know what's going on. So a little story is I've had a couple people commit suicide while I was in the military. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. Because I did everything I could do. I got into therapy, I did that. But sometimes in our lives, people get moved to different sections. And when their section chiefs and leaders are not as devoted or focused on what's going on, they won't see it. And they will assume that just because they're in therapy that they'll be okay. Well, this situation was they were in therapy. They couldn't get to the therapist. And nobody paid attention. And they committed suicide. So the things I want you to understand is, I need you to see that even if you put them in therapy, you still check on them. You check on them because you're in therapy, you're not an outcast. Because you reached out to get assistance for whatever it is you have going on. That does not make you lesser than a woman or a man. That makes you stronger. Because you reached out for some assistance. But you, as the one that pushed them to get assistance, I need you to continue to check on them. Because you can't fall off because they go into therapy. You actually have to be a little more vigilant because they are in therapy. Because sometimes those hour sessions bring up stuff that they still need somebody to be there for. So, the big risk factors, the mental health, chronic pain, family history. Proven fact that if you have a family member that commits suicide, someone else in the family will attempt to commit suicide. Because when we go to that point that we want to leave the earth and lose our lives, sometimes our relatives behind us think that's the right thing to do. So make sure that if you have somebody commit suicide, make sure the family goes into post-suicidal therapy. Because it's too late after it happens. But you still have those feelings that we could have did more. I could have stopped it. I could have changed the outcome. So you always remember that the family left behind needs help. The easy words for me to tell you right now is to give you an acronym or some letters, and I'm going to give you QPR. QPR means question, persuade, and refer. Questioning somebody about suicide is the hardest thing you can do. Because when you feel the urge to question somebody about suicide, you already know the answer. You already see the signs. So when you get that hard yes, you can't just take that hard yes and be like, oh no, I'm done, it's going to be okay, and walk away. When you get that hard yes, you actually have to tell them to, one, we need to go get some therapy. And you make sure that when you persuade them to get therapy, you don't just persuade them and say, okay, I'm going to come see you next week. You persuade them and you take them to therapy. You let them ride with you. If you don't have a car, y'all take an Uber, a Lyft, a cab, call a buddy. Doesn't matter, as long as both of you get there. And I tell you that both of you have to get there because you have to be responsible for your friend to get there. And when they finish with that hour session, or when they finish and the therapist might say, I need you to stay a little longer, or I need to take you somewhere else. I need you to do this 3 to 5 to 10 days. Stay with us so we can monitor you, to get you on medicine, to get you healthy. You have to be there. You still have to be their support. Because if you're not their support, it doesn't work. You have to be there to make it work. And this is what leads into the referral, because when we get into therapy, that is our part of referral, and we think that most of the work is done, but it's really not, because suicide ideations come back. It's not a one-time or lifetime, and it never comes back. It actually comes back. Sometimes every day. Just depends on the person. So, that's what you have to remember. And then, I'm going to close today with 1988 is the magic number, 988, and I have half of you in here that y'all go out on suicide calls, and I need y'all to make sure that y'all get some therapy too, and that's just to let it out. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with any of you in here. But I need you to know that sometimes you just have to let it out. Don't hold it in. Don't bottle everything up. Just let it out. Because once you get somebody you can actually let it out to, it'll make you feel better. And the one other thing I'm going to cover before I give you my good news story is about gun violence. Or a lot of people in here have weapons. So, if you have anybody that tells you that they would like to do this, and you know they have a weapon, I need you to talk with them about the weapon. I need you to tell them to unload the weapon, lock the ammo up in a different location, lock the weapon up in a different location. If they have a family member in the house, tell them to give them the weapon, and have them lock it up in a different location where that person cannot get to it. So, we unload, we lock, and we live. Because weapons are dangerous in hands where people want to commit suicide. Weapons are dangerous in small hands. So, the other part of my suicide awareness is to make sure you understand that weapon awareness is very important. Because a lot of people commit suicide with weapons. So, we always preach to protect us by locking up your weapons. You remember unload, lock, live. So that's the 3 L's in QPR, or ask, where you ask the hard questions. You persuade to move to another location where there are certified personnel to support. And that is your referral method. And you stay there. You stay with them until you get them the help that they need. And you come back and make sure. So, and I gave y'all all of that, and everybody's looking at me like, oh my God, this is so heavy. This is the season, and yes, it gets heavy during this season, but here's a good news story for you. Okay, in this area alone, we have stopped 9 people from committing suicide. I know that's a small number, but I'm going to give you the good news story about 2. One of them ran into the side of a barrier, the cement block on the side of the road, rolled into it, doing about 85, maybe 90. Why? Because I just don't want to do this anymore. And it wasn't a call out before, I just don't want to do this anymore. It was a call out after the fact. Because when you said it the first time, I said, hey, let's go get some therapy. We went to therapy, and therapy was fine. Did an inpatient outfit, no problem. Did a 30, 45 day. Yes, got new meds, everything. Still decided to drive fast into it. I just wanted to see if I would survive. Yes, you survived. The truck kept running. And instead of it stopping somewhere, yep, we kept driving at high speeds, 120 plus. Kept going. And then they drove on top of the gate. Why? Because I wanted to see if I could move the gate and see if I would keep living. Now, at the end of all of this, right now this person is very successful, has changed from being suicidal to training kids to do martial arts. So the persuasion of staying on the phone to keep them focused, to make sure they were in the 3rd inpatient location, actually made things better, because it took up to 3 to make it stop. So I want you to understand that yes, this is a good news story, because they're still walking around and they're being influential to someone else, to 4 different classes. So what I'm telling you is, if you keep, as some of us say, if you keep your foot on their neck, and you keep pushing them forward, And you pull them out of their mindset of, I just don't want to be here anymore. If you keep them pushing forward, they will be successful. And I know in some cases where some of them just not going to do it if they're in a different area. Well, today I'm going to show you this. I'm going to leave a flyer out here, a few of them. And it's a resource page. And on my resource page, I give you resources on national level 2 services. I give you the Austin location, the Dallas, the Fort Worth, and the Houston locations that will provide assistance. And they are open 24 hours, 7 days a week. So if you would like the first 988, you can. But if you want to dial the 800 number or the local numbers, you can do that too. But the reason why I give you so many resources is because you have friends in other areas. And when you have friends in other areas or people you just run into, I want you to be equipped to be able to help someone else. Because sometimes we have to be servants. And when you've been a servant to somebody else, all you are doing is helping. And because I have so many people in here that's your job, to help. I know you know this information already. But for everybody else in here, I'm going to give you this information so you are a little more equipped to do what we want everybody to do. Because we all, together, we can stop suicide. Yeah. So, I've given you a lot to chew on today, and I do apologize for maybe some of you look at me like, oh my God, this is too heavy for this season. But this is the season that makes it worse for a lot of people. And we want everybody to get to January 1st, unless they leave on natural causes. And there's nothing we can do about that. But if we can stop one person, if each of us can stop one person, that one person can save another life. So if we take one person, save that one, we can talk that one into saving another. And if we let this chain go all the way around the world, we can actually stop suicide. And that's our goal. And thank you all for coming out to listen.
Thank you, Tracy. Because of our holiday meal, we found it so important to have her here because you're getting recognized because of the heroic things that you guys have done. And we found it fitting that even in those heroic times, we need resources. And so we want you to know that from the bottom of the VFW's heart that we appreciate each and every one that we're recognizing today because of the things that you've experienced. And we're always a battle buddy right here when you need us. But right now, I'd like to move into our award ceremonies. First, we're going to recognize our EMS. I'm going to give you a brief bio on Mr. Rob Spencer. He's most notably, Rob was involved in a very difficult situation earlier this year with a young patient who had experienced a horrific traumatic event. Rob's quick thinking and action saved this young boy's life. It was recognized by surgeons and doctors and the trauma team and the Children's Hospital that his actions directly affected the patient's outcome positively. Throughout the remainder of the year, Rob has shown dedication to the Temple EMS by setting the standard for other employees and has recently been promoted to Field Training Officer. I'm sincerely thankful to have Rob on the team and believe he will be continuing to represent himself, Temple EMS, and the first responder community with pride and professionalism. From your superiors, they thank you. And at this time, if you'll come forward. The next will be our Temple Police Department. I'm asking this opportunity to nominate Jacob Seahan for the VFW Officer of the Year Award. Officer Seahan has been with the Temple Police Department since May of 2016. He became a police officer when he was 36 years old. However, his hiring date at the time was not the first time he had desired to be a police officer. Jacob Seahan was a Temple Police Department's Explorer program from 1995 to 1997. Jacob had some other goals in his life that he was very successful at before he applied to TPD. I appreciate his goal-driven personality and desire to be the guardian of his community. It did not take long after his employment here to understand how active and devoted Officer Seahan was. He has worked for me on several teams, and he is usually the most productive member on the team. His work ethic is unquestioned. The Officer Seahan has set the example for work performance wherever he has been. Officer Seahan will usually have the highest rank of traffic stops and arrests on the police group he is assigned to. So you better watch out for that guy, right? Both of these categories are incredibly important to ensure the protection and the welfare of the community. Officer Seahan also probably recovers more stolen vehicles than any other officer. Below will be 2 examples of his standard and normal activities. Recently, an officer sent out an email with information about suspects that have been taking multiple items from several Temple Dollar General stores. These suspects were taking multiple items from different stores, and they had left the area before officers have arrived. With the information provided, Officer Seahan began to patrol and watch for the suspect's vehicles that had been described. In 3 days, Officer Seahan had located the vehicle, arrested the driver on the other charge, and contacted the officer working the theft cases. His actions have prevented similar thefts in the area. Another case, within a few weeks of the first example, was a robbery from one of the local HEBs. A loss prevention employee had confronted a suspect while attempting to steal food items. This person then used force on the HEB employee and got away with some of the merchandise. Approximately 6 days later, Officer Seahan recognized the suspect at a local convenience store. His stealthy waited for the suspect to drive off and made a traffic stop. This person was arrested on the traffic violation. Through his actions, perseverance, and investigative skill sets, the suspect was completely identified. This robbery case is currently at the District Attorney's Office awaiting review. I have been a supervisor at the Temple Police Department since 1995. Officer Jacob Seahan is one of the best officers I have the privilege and honor to work with in my career. I am respectfully requesting that he be accepted by the VFW this year. Thank you, Lieutenant Edward Best, number 205. We have accepted your nomination, and we'd like to recognize him for his heroism. Can I have Officer Seahan? Great. All right. Moving forward. Our next recommendation was for firefighter Renisha Cole for the Paramedic of the Year. Firefighter Cole has been an amazing part of the Temple Fire and Rescue from the day she started our training program to become a firefighter. Firefighter Cole has been ready and willing to help with every task assigned to her without question. She has performed in her position, from my viewpoint, very exemplary skills and professionalism. I have watched her career progress and have never heard any negative speak against her. Everyone that works with her only speaks highly of her skills and performance. I have watched her assist with our training programs, and for the short term that she has been with our department, has proved that her capabilities exceed her experiences. Firefighter Cole has made every effort to take any training available to her and excel in every aspect. She is not happy with mediocre performance from herself and informally leaves from her position. She is a fine example to all who interact with her in her aspect of her position. Firefighter Cole recently completed her paramedic training, which she was the valedictorian of the class. Please come forward, Firefighter Cole. time, I'd like to call back our commander for recognizing our staff and members.
One of the things that I told the members of this post when I took over as commander 4 years ago is that I cannot do this job by myself. I'm going to surround myself with people that are smarter and more talented, and then I will more or less be the mouthpiece. So I'd like to have my staff, please come forward, and that's going to be Dale Edmonds. Sometimes I have to holler him, he has a hearing situation. Yes, bring you there. Robert Turnbaugh, Minnie Troy, Anthony Shores. James Sneed is at a funeral. Not his, though. Not until I see him. Who else is it? Bud Johnson. Yes, of course, you do, Bud. You're in it also. And Sabrina Young. Please, out front. I want everyone to see why this folks is making it happen. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what makes this post work. Not this person. I'm merely a part of this. Without the folks that you see before you now and the folks you see that are back there as volunteers, that's what makes this post work. A team effort, and I am so proud to be able to give this something. Just to let you know, I appreciate you and I salute you.
At this time, before we conclude, we're going to have our closing remarks by Hugh Shine, State Representative District. He's a retired U.S. Army 30 years Colonel, Master Army Aviator, and graduate Army War College. He's a local businessman. He graduated Sam Houston State University. He's got a Master's in Business from Baylor University. He's proudly married and a proud father to 4 children and wonderful grandfather to his 7 great-grandchildren. Please welcome our State Representative, Hugh Shine.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to join you, and what I'd like to do, and I shared this with Sabrina earlier, this is Christmas season. We're here to recognize those who received awards, but I also think it's important to have a story about Christmas and about what America is all about, and just why this is an important season. So this story, it brings some tears to your eyes. But it was Christmas Eve, 1942. This young man was 15 years old. He was feeling like the world had caved in on him because there just hadn't been enough money for his family to buy him the rifle that he wanted for Christmas. He did the chores early that evening, and he figured his daddy wanted a little extra time so they could read the Bible. And after supper was over, he took his boots off, stretched out in front of the fireplace, and waited for his daddy to get out the old Bible, and he was still feeling sorry for himself. And to be honest, he said, I wasn't much in a mood to read the scriptures that night, Christmas Eve. But he said, Daddy didn't get the Bible out. Instead, he bundled up again and went outside. And the young man, 15 years old, couldn't figure out what was going on. He said, I didn't worry about it very long enough because it was too busy because I was suffering in my own self-pity. Soon his dad came back in. It was a cold, clear night. There was ice on his beard. And he came in and he said to his son, Matt, bundle up good. It's cold outside. The young man was really upset at that point in time. Not only was he not getting a rifle for Christmas, but his dad was dragging him out in the cold, and he couldn't figure out why. His mom gave him a mysterious smile as the door opened and they walked out, and outside they became more dismayed because outside, well, the team was hitched up with a big sled. So wherever they were going, it wasn't going to be short, quick, or a little job. His dad had already gotten up in the seat and the reins were in his hand, and he reluctantly, the young man climbed in beside him. The cold was already hitting him. He said, when I was on, Daddy pulled the sled around the backside of the house, stopped at the woodshed, and he got off and he followed, and he said, I think we'll put the high sideboards on the sled. Well, the high sideboards were a big job, and he knew this was going to be a bigger job than what he thought at first. Then his dad went into the woodshed and came out with an armload of wood. Spent all summer, that young man had spent all summer hauling down from the mountain and then sawing into blocks and splitting. What was he doing, he was wondering. He said, have you been by the widow Jensen's lately? Mrs. Jensen lived about 2 miles down the road from their home. Her husband had died about a year earlier, left her with 3 children, the oldest being 8 years of age. The dad said, I rode by today, and little Jakey was out digging around in the woodpile trying to find a few chips for the fire tonight. They were out of wood, Matt. That was all he said, and then he turned and went back into the woodshed for another armload of wood. Matt followed him, and they loaded the sled so high that he began to wonder if the horses in the sled would even be able to pull it. Finally, called a halt to the loading, went into the smokehouse, took down a big ham and a side of bacon, handed it to his son, and got in the wagon. And then he had a little sack, and he said, what's in the sack? He said, shoes. They're out of shoes, son. Little Jakey had gunny sacks on his wrapped around his feet. They rode 2 miles in the dark, in the night, in the cold. And the young man, Matt, was trying to think where they were, what was going to happen. And of course, they got there and there wasn't much of a wood pile. And they had meat and they had flour. He said, we could spare that. But why were we doing this? Widow Jensen had closer neighbors. So he came from the blind side of the house, and they unloaded the wood as quietly as possible. Then took the meat and flour and the shoes to the front door, and they knocked at the front door. Miss Jensen came to the door and said, who is it? And he said, this is Lucas and my son Matt. Can we come in? Mrs. Jensen opened the door. She had a blanket wrapped around her. The children were wrapped in another blanket, were sitting in front of the fireplace, a very small fire. Wasn't giving off very much heat. She fumbled for a match to light the lamp. Mr. Miles said, we brought you a few things, ma'am. Matt's dad sat down a sack of flour, put the meat on the table, handed her the sack and the shoes that were in it. She opened hesitantly and looked and saw the shoes. She bit her lower lip to keep it from trembling, and then tears filled her eyes and started running down her cheeks. And she looked up at her dad, at Matt's dad, and said she wanted to say something but couldn't. And then Matt brought in the load of wood, and he turned and said, bring in enough to last a while, and let's get that fire heated up. But he kept seeing those 3 kids huddled around the fireplace, and the mother standing there with tears running down her cheeks with so much gratitude in her heart she couldn't speak. Matt said, my heart swelled within me, and the joy I've never known before filled my soul. I had given a Christmas it many times before, but never when it made such a difference. I could see we were literally saving the lives of this woman and those 3 children. Soon we had the fire blazing, and everyone's spirits were up. Mrs. Jensen looked and smiled, and probably hadn't crossed her face in a long time, and she finally turned to Matt's father and said, "God bless you. I know the Lord has sent you. The children and I have been praying that He would send one of His angels to spare us this Christmas Eve night." And in spite of myself, young Matt, a lump returned in his throat and tears in his eyes. He never thought of his daddy as an angel. But after Widow Jensen mentioned it, he could see that it was probably true. He was sure that a better man than his daddy had never walked the earth. Started remembering all the times he'd gone out of his way for his mom and him and many others. His dad insisted that everyone try on the shoes and was amazed that they all fit. Tears were running down Widow Jensen's face again when we stood up to leave. Daddy took the kids in his arms and gave them a big hug and pulled out some candy that he had in the sack. And as the door closed, Miss Jensen was there. He said, my wife and I want to invite you and the kids to our house for Christmas dinner tomorrow. The turkey would be more than the 3 of us can consume, and a man can get cantankerous if he has to eat turkey for too many days. He said, we'll come by and get you at about 11 tomorrow. Mrs. Jensen nodded and said, thank you, Brother Miles, and I don't have to say, may the Lord bless you, and I know for certain He will. And out on the sled, young Matt felt a warmth that came from deep within. Said he didn't even notice the code. When we had gone a ways, my dad turned around and said to me, Matt, I want you to know something. Your mother and I have been tucking a little money away here and there all year long so we could buy you that rifle that you wanted for Christmas. But we didn't quite have enough money. Then yesterday, a man who owed me some money for many years came by to make things square. Your mom and me were really excited, thinking that now we could get you that rifle. And I started into town in the morning to do just that. But on the way, I saw Mrs. Jensen and Jakey out scratching in the woodpile with his feet wrapped in those gunny sacks. And I knew what I had to do. Son, I spent the money for shoes and a little candy for those children. I hope you understand. Now the rifle seemed very low on his list of priorities. He said he'd given a lot of more. He'd given me the look at Mrs. Jensen's face and the radiant smiles of the children. And he said, for the rest of my life, whenever I saw any of the Jensens or split a block of wood, I remembered that Christmas Eve night and remembered bringing back that same joy I felt riding home beside my daddy that night. He had given me much more than a rifle. He had given me the best Christmas I'd ever had in my life. Please join me in closing prayer, ladies and gentlemen. Father, we recognize the right of every human being is to live in dignity and freedom and the right to worship God. Lord, the fight to preserve these principles is hard fought, and we must continue to awaken the people of this world to its moral responsibilities. We ask that you continue to bless America. Give us the strength and the perseverance necessary to be steadfast in the midst of challenges that we face every day as individuals and as a nation regarding our faith, our desire for freedom, liberty, and opportunity to worship you. Grant us courage to serve wherever you call us to serve. Give us leaders who believe that Jesus is God and the Word is God, and leaders who embrace Christian principles, values, and virtues. We ask for your leadership, your wisdom, your discernment, and sound judgment as we live our daily lives. Thank you for those who have given their lives to gain and protect our freedom. And we ask that you continue to give us brave men and women who are willing to sacrifice everything, defending our country and protecting us in our communities. Lord, we pray that you are the shield around our firefighters, our police officers, our first responders, and our soldiers, and all who are here to protect and serve us. Bless this food and this gathering today of men and women celebrating our local law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders and military service members. And Lord, please be merciful upon this great nation and continue to be the compass in our lives. And let us never forget that we are one nation under God. Amen. Merry Christmas, folks.
We would like to pay tribute to a very dear member here that has done some mighty things this year. His name is William Shoemaker. If you'll please come forward. Please give a round of applause for all the mighty things he's done for our country.
I always got a little something surprise.
Come on over.
This is something that we're going to do because I'm going to implement a thing called a Comrade of the Year. So this will be the first time it happened, but Mr. William R. Shoemaker has done quite a bit as far as to haul down the way. He painted it. He's done a lot of things for us. So he will be our first recipient this year. Next year, there'll be another. So we'll see how that works out. So Mr. Roy Shoemaker.
Well, we're going to announce it.
The stomach is starting to rule now.
Great, thank you.
Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to start with the table here, and then we'll go with the folks from the table here, and then we'll call the line. So, Representative Ushine, Dr. Beaver, Tracy, and then we'll just go from this side, going down this side. Go down this way.
Go that way?
you.